Welcome back to another episode of the Off Grid Podcast. Super special guest all the way out from Denton, Texas, one of my buddies, Nate Hamilton. So
What up, Ryan?
I feel like everyone pretty much knows who you are in the drift scene. You're big shot. So, but for the people who don't, kind of give us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you kind of got here, and yeah.
He said big shot.
You are.
I mean, I think of myself more like an OG, if you will. I feel like, so my name is Nate Hamilton. I've been drifting for around 15 years. I honestly tried to stop keeping track of time. But I started just street drifting, no motorsports background, no parents into motorsports. Just, it would rain in Dallas. We would take 240s out into industrial complexes and drift around cones. I like distinctly remember trying to do a counterclockwise circle, clockwise circle. Wait, let's put those together. Now we're doing a figure eight, and then boom, just life flashed, and I became a pro driver. And later in my career, I started a business, and here we are at Ryan's podcast.
Yeah. So I met you. Well, actually, I technically met you when I messaged you on Instagram when I was like 14.
Mm-hmm.
Dad and I had just built like a little SR S14. I didn't even have a license. I'd never been to an event, and I like DM'd you, and I was like, "Yo, like." You're like, because I found you through the old Njuku behind the build stuff that you guys shot with Kevin.
Yep.
And that's how I saw you. And then I was like, oh my God, these are like Florida locals. These are like the guys. Like I like idolized you. Not that I don't now, but now we kind of have like a personal business to business, driver to driver relationship. So it's kind of different. But yeah, I messaged you, and then you messaged me back. You were like super cool about it. And I was like, damn. And then I think I met you at Clutch Giggers is where we first like crossed paths.
Yeah, I love my time in Florida. That was really a good time for me in life, So I have a soft spot in my heart for Florida, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love Florida, and it's nice to be back in Florida.
Yeah. So you drove FD. You started with what year was your first year of Pro 2?
So this is gonna date myself like crazy. That's a great question, and I can't answer it because there was no Pro 2 when I started. Let me say that again. There was no Pro 2 when I went into Formula Drift. So think about it like this. I was with like Will Parsons, Dave Briggs, Chelsea DeNofa, Dan Savage, and we were all in XDC. So we did extreme drift circuit. And that's really how my career started, was in Dallas. I just happened to have an SR20. Obviously, I blew that thing up, and I went to put a V8 in the car. And my mechanic at that time, it was Customs Unlimited, and he had a team, like a car show team called 16ness. I'm getting into the weeds here. And basically they were going to XTC, and then XTC was going to have drifting. So as he put the V8 in my car, he was like, you need to go to a competition. And I was like, I do not want to go to a competition. And he's like, you have to go to this competition. So I joined XTC, meet Jared Deanda, Forsberg, the whole DA crew, and DeNofa. And so I was in that class where DeNofa and I came out of XDC and went right into Pro 1. So
Okay.
There was no Pro 2.
Gotcha. Pat was just on, and he kind of talked about that. Cause when he did like Pro Am, there was like the Pro Am All Stars and stuff at Irwindale, and like there was no Pro 2 at the time. So damn, that's cool. And then you drove, because when I first watched you, you were in Pro 2 with Njuku. So did you kind of drive straight into Pro 1 and then dip out, or what happened there?
Yep. So I went into Pro 1. I'm going to get my numbers a little off here, but in my memory, it was like, I think 2013, maybe 2012 was my debut in Pro. So then I did 13, 14, and then in 15, I want to say was when Njuku and myself got together, and we actually had just a few motor issues together. So we had some back pressure issues with our turbo, and I ended up failing on a race. And at that time, I mean, there was like 70 drivers in Pro. So you were able to fall out of that top 40 and go back into Pro 2 when they launched it. So I want to say I was in the first year of Pro 2 due to my point standings, which is how I went from Pro to Pro 2. And then I think I did 1 year in Pro 2 and then got back into Pro.
Gotcha. And then so you kind of went from, you did a few years of Pro 2, and then I know you kind of pulled out of FD. Do you mind kind of touching on like what caused that to happen and why you kind of separated yourself from a full-time FD schedule, and then kind of what you did in that off time?
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny when I think about this, so I'd love to share it, right? So it's like, essentially I'm living in Florida. I'm in Claremont. I'm with Injuku Racing. And I'm honestly just like, I felt like that period of time for me was the college that I never went to. So my background was just like hard work, right? Like my parents just taught me how to work. Um, and I was a pressman screen printing for like a trade, right? So like I would screen print Monday through Thursday, and then I'd be able to take off Friday to load up my trailer and go drifting over the weekend. And I did this probably 2 or 3 years prior to coming to Injuku. So then finally, when I was, in that pro class, I was like, man, I really need someone better to me to watch over my car. And I sent my car to Florida. And then I thought, well, why don't I just move to Florida and be with the car? So long story short, I ended up in Florida. And we had an awesome time. Like it was the college that I never had been to. And I just honestly woke up one day, and it was no disrespect to Injuku. I just realized I don't own any of this stuff. It was the time period where Pat Gooden was leaving Injuku and Nate was joining Injuku, and things were awkward and why is this so awkward? And then my racing results and my sponsors, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how to have a sponsorship program very well, because you got to remember, Ryan, like when I was a kid, a lot of my life went just like this. I'm drifting at a fun event in Texas, and Inkay Wheels walks up to me and they're like, dude, you're ripping. Do you want to be sponsored? And I'm like, wow. So a lot of the opportunities that came to me when I was a kid came to me. Nowadays, like the number one DM is like, how do I get sponsors? And I'm like, don't try. Try to do it yourself as long as you could do it yourself at whatever level you could do it. And that passion then will show through, and then people will be like, wow, we want to be a part of it, whatever, right? So like that's how my life went. So I woke up and I realized I'm at Injuku. I don't own any of this stuff. And over time, if I lose this ride, I will go so far back because I don't have anything. And I was just unhappy with my racing results, and I was unhappy with just my overall business mentality, like how I was going to feed a family, how I was going to raise myself out of wherever I was. And so long story short, I woke up and I was like, hey, Injuku, it's going to be my last season. I'm going to go back to Texas and I'm going to start screen printing again like I used to before drifting. And I just kind of got this vision to where I can screen print merch for people, and no problem. Like in 1 year's time, I'll come right back into drifting. No big deal. And they were like, hey, good luck on your journey. And I did just that, minus the part where I got into drifting 1 year later. It was very difficult to get back into drifting when I let it go for a second.
Hell yeah. Yeah, because all of that makes sense. When you start, it's a little different for me because drifting has become so established, and professional driving and the marketing side of it and the business side of it has become, everybody getting in now sees that because of guys like you, Adam, Chelsea, people like the pioneers basically. So it's easy to see how like when you were getting into it, drifting and the marketability of it was kind of in its infancy. So a lot of people didn't plan on building their own programs, building a business around their program, kind of building that like long-term sustainability. And I feel like that hit you and you were kind of like, oh shit, like if this goes south, I don't have any of it and I can't even do it. Like,
yeah. And I think too, like looking at it now, obviously it's easier to look back and go, damn, I probably wouldn't do that again. Like if I was in that space with Injuku to where they were just like, drive as long as you want, as long as you're upholding your responsibilities, like with the YouTube stuff, right? Like you mentioned that earlier, where it was like, I watched your YouTube. That was Corey Denemy and myself just coming to Florida going, this is what we do. We need to do this.
yeah.
And Injuku was like, wow, this is really like bringing some market value, and this is really bringing like some audience. And so we were bringing value. Like I just didn't see it, and I didn't know how to turn value into opportunity at that time. And then, yeah, looking at it now, it's like, I think that was just I hate this word, but entrepreneur in myself that was like, I want to feed my family. I want to make the right decisions for my intuition in my career. And ultimately, I want to have stake and ownership in whatever I'm doing. That way I can forecast the longevity of that project. And yeah, that's when I started Rhythm Print Supply, LLC, which was a goal to get away from 144 and Nate's original just branding. And it did not work. Everyone called Rhythm asking for 144 and where's Nate? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, because now it's obviously like the 144 print and race shop, or however you have it exactly worded. But so yeah, you went back, did the screen printing for a year, and then it seems like that kind of took off. Like you were doing like a lot of local stuff and stuff for the drivers, right? Like not just motorsport stuff, but everything local business wise as well. Or
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was definitely a very grassroots approach to business. I remember taking no loans out. Like I didn't ask for money from anyone, right? Like I was able to purchase round numbers like a $5,000 package where I had a press, an oven, and a flash. And I basically just started screen printing. And I remember for the first, year, basically, it was like I was on vacation because I didn't travel. All I had to do was screen print. I had my own shop to screen print at, which was like 1,000 square foot little shop with a race car underneath the press.
yeah,
And it was just like my little like safe space where I could just focus. And I just started hand screening, and I actually did that for 1 full year. And to be transparent for the viewers out there, I was able to bring in $100,000, and I thought I had made it. I thought I was on top of the world. And then, ran into some business mentors that basically taught me $100,000 gross income turns into, netting like $20,000 after all your cogs, right? So it was like after I pay this and pay that back, and, like I only earned 20 to 30% of that total earnings. So it was like, damn, I barely paid myself.
yeah,
Like could barely live off that. You know what I mean? And so from there, I had to kind of like learn more about business.
yeah. Well, it's sick to see how much that's expanded. Talking about that, and then a few months ago we had the opportunity to come out to the shop, do a cool down episode with you, and now you've got this double-sided shop, like half race shop, half print shop. You've got multiple employees, so I mean, obviously all the effort and stress and the mentor
Dude.
like really kicked in because you built a hell of a business. And
Yeah,
so
things are going faster and faster now for me, right? Like I have had some awesome, like I say, like plenty of them, but like I've had two really, really inspiring business mentors for myself. One of them taught me my own value, and one of them taught me math.
hell yeah,
So from there, I've been able to like put the right people in the right places and really expand the shop further than myself. Like one of the sayings is to work on the business and not in it, right? So like I'm trying to get myself out of my own self's way, if that
hell
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. No, that's cool. I totally get that, and that's obviously it shows in your business knowledge and how much you've been able to do with it. So it's good that you take advice and run with it because there's a lot of advice out there, and if you don't put it into action and soak it up and then apply it, it does nothing for you. So then you got back into driving probably right about the time that we started driving together, which is Clutch Kickers, right? Would you say that that's when you kind of rolled back out onto the scene with the S13 and whatnot?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember cleaning screens and washing screens and thinking about drifting every day for a year, like on a calendar. You know what I mean? Like I visualized racing again. And I remember my first event back was actually Holly LS Fest West. I went to Las Vegas and I got second against current class pro cars and shit. And I was like, man, I still got it.
Yeah.
I feel better now. I felt better as a driver taking a year off, if that makes sense. And then Clutch Kickers launched their season. And then, I was like fully committed to that because it was the only like points series that was loose enough to just be like, bring whatever you want and race. And that worked out really well for us. I remember actually walking that track when it was sand. I helped them visualize that little concept. It was cool.
Yeah, because I could be wrong, but didn't you drive like the first payout competition they did that wasn't part of the series?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember right before round one, I went back and watched super old footage of you driving that track.
Yeah.
When it was like first freshly done, and they had like a public day, and then they had like a competition that I think like Taylor Hall won or something, the very first one that was like unrelated to the series, and then they came out with the series, which was sweet.
Exactly. And they had like open days where they just would drive. Like they had like track days, if you will, there. I remember going to some of those. But yeah, so anyways, it was really cool. It was a good time for me. And then like coming back into drifting, I was like, cool, I know a little bit about business. I know a little bit about the value of my program. I know that if I reverse engineer the costs of my annual spend at racing a year, that's how many partnerships I could look forward to, such as like one title sponsor could pay for everything or 15 small dudes could pay for everything. So I basically kind of knew the math that I wanted to put together for my tour. And that's when I started doing those tours.
Yeah.
right? So I did the Endless Search for Tires tour because I didn't have a tire sponsor. So I distinctly wanted to highlight the Endless Search for Summer Vibe. I don't know if you know that like documentary and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's like I played off of that to the Endless Search for Tires because I was like, drifters use a ton of tires. I need a tire sponsor. I'm going to title the tour Endless Search for Tires. And that literally landed me Accelera. It's cool.
Yeah, which is sick because that's just a cool concept. Like that's good marketability. You know, most people don't think like that. They're just like DMing, hey, like, will you supply me with tires? And like,
Yeah.
it's so cool that you kind of thought so far out of the box to create an entire kind of marketing, not scheme, but like a marketing plan around what you wanted to do, which was just drive all these sick badass events because you weren't an FD. So you were hitting Clutch Kickers, LS Fest, stuff like that, and then found a way to kind of brand it on social media. And then I remember you selling merch that kind of looked like a tour tee almost. So damn, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. We had inspiration from the Rolling Stones. So we tried to pull out that like 70s tour shirt. And then, and you got to remember too, it's like I was funding everything. So, and I was patient, right? Like I love screen printing and then I wanted to get back into drifting. So it was very easy for me to say, I'm going to do 4 events in 2019. Like that's all I did, just 4 events the whole year. And this is going to fill my cup up. I'm going to be stoked. I'm going to get to drive and then keep working on my business. And that's like the patience that I try to preach to kids now is just like, sure, right? Like whoever I was just at Adam's spot. So it's like Adam can do 98 events a year. That's great, you know, but like if you and your dad can go do 4 and you're stoked, that's equally as cool for wherever you're at in your life. And that's how I treated it. And then I knew, 4 events and I need 10K in events. So I need 40K. Great. How do I get 40K? Hey guys, I need 4 sponsors at 10,000. Oh, got it. And then boom. And then I just started doing that more and more. And now life's getting crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I feel like for you, things have pretty much reached a different level than they ever have. Like, even though on paper, like FD is like the pinnacle, the top level of driving, you know, if you get it to FD, like you made it. I feel like we're kind of seeing a decrease in that because people are understanding the value in social media and growing yourself as like a personal individual brand, and not just being at the top level of driving and placing. Because, you know, a lot of YouTube influencers and social media influencers are able to pull out more sponsorship funding and brand deals and presence than people that are delivering at a high level of competition, but don't take the social media and online branding and that side of it very serious.
I mean, without causing too much chaos in this next sentence here, it's like saying, if I was to run a drifting series, one of the things that I could note from other forms of motorsports, such as motocross, they basically have classes where they train the athletes how to speak publicly, how to carry themselves, and what value and worth those programs are worth, right? Like if we're all on TV together racing, the bar is this. So do not take anything under this bar or else you're doing us all a disservice. And I feel like we're seeing that shift right now in drifting where certain top series, you know, has a certificate, right? Like, here is my license. And what you do with that license is completely up to you. And no one knows the value of it. And it's worth whatever you think it's worth. And it becomes very difficult for kids walking into the sport to understand their value. Like, if I'm a Formula Drift Pro driver, what does that mean? Do I feed my family? Do I like have everything, like, is my expenses covered? Like, what does that mean in business? You know what I mean? Versus if I do a grassroots tour where I'm going to blend music and motorsports, what does that mean? You know what I mean? And like, so I think we're kind of seeing the certificate licensing side of things either lose its value or need to explain its value.
Certainly. Yeah, because I mean, when I first got into drifting, I assumed that like, if you make it to FD, like you've made it, like you're drifting professionally on somebody else's dollar, you know, you're able to just do that and that's it. And then as we got into it, I was like, it is the furthest thing from it. It is the last way that you almost make money in a sense, depending on how you approach it.
I got an OG story for you. So I'll never forget the day I'm coming off the press, and I'm going into Formula Drift. So I'm kind of leaving the job I was working, and I was on Achilles tires with Sherilyn at Achilles. and with Daigo, Robbie Nishida, and I think I was like the third in that pack, right? Like I was coming from XTC and I was going into Formula Drift, and I had been running I said accelerators. I had been running Achilles tires, and I was getting free tires in XTC, and so I called them with the news that I finished third in XTC's championship and I earned my pro license. And I was like, guys, I'm going pro. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I am so stoked to go to Formula Drift next year. And I just wanted to update you guys and let you know that. And they were like, awesome, Nate. That sounds great. We'll let you know your cost on tires. And I was like, hang on. Sorry, I'm going pro. I'm going to Formula Drift. Like, I'm already getting free tires. Like, I'm going pro. And they're like, well, dude, you understand, like, when you go from middle school to high school, like, you're back to zero. Like, you're in a whole new place and you're the smallest fish in that pond again. And I was like, wait, so I got to buy tires to go pro? And they were like, yeah. And that analogy stuck in my head to your point on just the idea of like going pro sometimes means much different versions of what you think it means.
No, definitely. And I feel like now we're at a point where like people can kind of step back and ideally build their brand or build a business around it to where they can kind of excel when they get into that next level of driving. You know what I mean?
And that's probably the hardest part about it all, to be honest, right? Because I know there's a handful of dudes out there that are just like, can we cuss on this thing?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's a handful of dudes out there that are just like, I don't give a fuck about marketing. I don't want to look cool. I don't give a fuck. I want to put my racing suit on and I want to go win a drift event. Like, and that mentality we all need as well. Like, we all need that. So it's two sides of the coin when it's like, well, marketing is the way, and starting a personal brand and make merch and be a personality. And like, you know, the fucking core of it all is to go drift, sweat your ass off in a car and win a race. Like,
Definitely.
that's like what we all hang on to. But to your point, yeah, I mean, there is a ton of freedom when you can say to yourself, wow, I can go on a podcast. Wow, I can make a shirt and people want to buy it. Wow, I can, okay, cool. Fucking whatever my race number is a brand.
Yeah.
Like, then that's the other side of the coin you have to have. I always looked up to Forsberg when I was young, and that dude, it was like, he taught me, it's like, hey man, you know, I'm a truck driver. You know, I'm an on-camera personality. You know, I'm a professional drifter, a stunt driver, a mechanic, a family dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like drifters have to be all of these disciplines just to go drift. You just can't just be a driver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
crazy.
if you want to take it anything past the like learning and bottom grassroots level of just like local stuff, you have to teach yourself all of those little attributes and techniques to excel and climb and reach the next level, which is crazy because obviously that's something every driver learns firsthand, because most people are like, oh, I want to go pro. And then you end up chasing the ladder and you realize like, oh shit, there is a lot to learn through every step of the way. Because for me, when I first started driving clutch kickers, I was like, you know, this is the start of me in competition drifting. And in my head, I'm like, you just drive and you just get better and you start winning, and then it's all up from there. And then kind of almost like your reset analogy with the fish in the pond. Every time you make a next step, whether it's from like, you know, just being like a bottom barrel grassroots comp driver, and then you start driving pro AM or shootouts or LS Fest, and then every time you realize you're like, oh shit, like I'm at a different level. I've got to step things up. The program costs us more. It needs more car. And then you're like, how do I make this happen? Because it's just a lot of financial burden. And then, you know, you're like, wait a minute, I don't just drive and get better. Like the car needs to change. I need to change. The team has to get faster and faster. And we have to learn more about how to set up the car and how to make it competitive at all these different tracks. You're like, oh shit, it's not just like drive a couple series and get better. And then the next thing you know, you win a Pro-Am. There's like 900 levels in between, you know, going to your first Pro-Am round and then winning the Pro-Am championship, which is nuts. Like,
I mean, yeah, and at least not yet, right? In a lot of forms of motorsports, dudes like myself grow up. Like, we're kind of seeing it with Vaughn. You know, we're kind of seeing it with others in Formula Drift's world, where you can potentially purchase a package to arrive and drive, right? Like, you can buy that team and that knowledge, and you can join that opportunity if you fit in that box. But there's two examples of that right now in drifting. You know what I mean? It's very, in America, I should say, it's very rare to have dudes like us just be like, wow, I could just join, like, I'm just going to go do that. And I think as we all get older and older, we'll probably establish those foundations. And then like my son growing up may have that opportunity to where there is a sorted, like situation in drifting where
Yeah.
there's opportunities to just try to win and drive in the it's I hate, that I keep going back to motocross, but it's like motocross, it's like Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, X, Y, and Z, and they have those programs. And then those riders basically sign 2-year contracts, and then they can switch wherever they want to go. They could drive, or they could ride a Kawasaki, then they could ride a Yamaha, then they could ride a Honda. So it's like, what if in drifting, you only had 2-year contracts where Osbo signed with Toyota at Papadakis, but then he was like, well, actually, I want to try a Ford with Vaughn. And then you could switch. And then James Dean goes to the Toyota program. And then what if, Matt Field's Corvette, and then so he's Chevy, and then Ford, and then Toyota, and then da-da-da. Like maybe Formula Drift would get there and then have less drivers, but that's where you really could pay your family and earn a salary and just show up to Formula Drift and try to win races and go home, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, which that would be kind of interesting. Obviously, the sport needs to grow a lot before I feel like it can get there, but that's a really good conceptual idea, because it's almost like, not like, I was going to kind of add on like the tube chassis stuff, but then it kind of variates the differences in cars. But
just keep the logistics of the program in mind. Like whatever car we're in, whatever tire we're on, like all that stuff is just going to be the consumable that changes.
Yeah.
But the organization of the program should follow something like motocross, where Chevy has a stake in Formula Drift, Ford has a stake, Toyota has a stake, Nissan has a stake. Those dudes have 3-car programs. So then there's 3 drivers per program. They can only sign 2-year contracts. They can flip, flop, switch, rotate, whatever they want to do, bid on, salaries change, whatever needs to be the math. And it's kind of like NASCAR, right? Where they just get a ride. They have work-life balance with their families. They're making decent money and salaries to focus on winning the race and not driving the truck to and from the race. Like that's my vision for a pro drifting life.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can see it eventually get there. You know what I mean? Like every professional motorsport, whether it be like NASCAR, IMSA, or, Formula racing. I mean, that's been around forever, but at this point, everyone's got to go through the stages. So it is something that I think we could see in Formula Drift once there's a bigger return of investment for these companies. Because obviously I feel like, I don't know, these companies spend a lot of money, so I don't know that it would be much more to just fund a 3-car program and stop giving money to everybody else. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's what's interesting about it. But let's bounce back real quick to the ROI on things, and like in our cases, stuff I tell kids is like to pay attention to I know this sucks to say, but like a spreadsheet, right? So like when you are going to do 4 rounds for your first ever drift series, or you're going to walk your way into a pro-am event, you can start to calculate how much each round costs, to then times that by how many rounds you're going to do, to then understand the budget you need to create. And I feel like for so many kids out there, like that's step 1. Understand the budget you need to create. Try your best to stop going, I'm just going to do this one race. I'm just going to do this one race. I'm just going to do this one race. How much money did I spend? I don't even want to know. It's like, and dudes will brag about how they pay their crew the least amount possible. They're like, nah, dude, I do this on the lowest amount of money. And it's like, there's a word in business called retention. It's like, well, how long is that crew around? Like, how long are you and I going to go sleep in a truck and drive across the country? Like, how many years are we going to actually do that and make no money and then be proud of that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I see, especially a lot because the Orlando drift scene is pretty big, and we've got so many Zs and so many just seat time drivers, not seat time drivers, but like grassroots drivers that literally just grind seat time. They're at every single local event. And then, they approach me and they're like, hey, like, how do I get started in the Pro-Am? Like, I'm going to drive the Pro-Am this year, because I'm getting that competitive itch. And I tell everybody, like, the best way to get good at competing is to just start competing. But approach it with responsibility and think it through, because just because you're a really good driver and you probably could hang driver, when there is guys like me showing up with 4 more years of Pro-Am experience and then dog box quick change cars, like those cars typically, if the driver is good, tend to dominate, just like they did at Clutch Gears, just like they do at every amateur event where there's a huge gap between the car showing up, the level of driver.
Yep.
And not that you shouldn't go compete, but if it's gonna like, if you're gonna be penny pinching to just make it round around and just kind of run a really, really low budget, very like in competitive program, it's almost better to just methodically think it out and write these things down, create a spreadsheet, and then approach it differently. Figure out, okay, instead of just driving, like you said, I need this amount of money to drive if I wanted to do this next season. How between now and then can I build sponsorships and a deck and a program to try and gather that money and then come full force with a way better program than you would have than just like, oh, I'm going to do the pro-am this year. I'm going to throw nitrous on my 370Z and I'm going to just compete and I'm going to try and win. Because you're just chasing something when you could set yourself up so much more for success and opportunity.
And I think too, like, you know, again, on the other side of the coin of that conversation is like, we are talking about the guys that are aiming to have a career in drifting.
Absolutely.
Like, obviously there's those like run and gun dudes who are just like, I do not care. I'm just going to go do this thing. Whatever the next thing is, I will go do it. And that is cool. And those dudes rip. And there's a ton of cool stories of like badass drivers that are nowhere around anymore that we all loved, and they do not drift anymore. So we are more or less talking about dudes who are like, how do I make a career out of drifting?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want anyone to take that as like, you know, if you just want to do the pro-am because you want to go to a competition.
Yeah.
We're obviously talking about on the side of like, I want to be in this shit until I die. You know what I mean? Because
they're like, Nate said I need an Excel spreadsheet before I can go to my pro-am.
You don't need to do all that. But, you know, we have a very similar mindset in the way that we try and approach things for the longevity. I kind of talked to you about that on your podcast, like not rushing anything because I don't want to be the first to get there, but I want to be the guy that stays around the longest. Because even growing up watching FD I think I started watching FD when I was 13 or 14. So like 7 or 8 years now. Mm-hmm. Even in that time, I've seen so many sick drivers come and go or have like a super sick program and opportunity. And then I think back and I like look him up now and I'm like, where did this dude go? Because now that I drive and I'm involved in the scene and know most of these people, where's that dude at now? And then I go on Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, they haven't posted in 5 years. They're just like, they just circled back to normal life and just either that was by choice or maybe things didn't work out for the program, but then I see that and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want that to be me. So I'm like, I got to focus on this. Like,
well, and the thing about business and racing is that everything is evolving all the time. You know, like the amount of reps, meaning representatives at a business that change. Like I'll have a sponsorship deal going with this man or woman, right? Where it's like, whoa, I love them. That's so cool. They're supporting me. And then they'll move on in their career. And then the company would be like, hey, who are you? And we're like, no, we've been partnered for 2 years already. And they're like, well, Billy left, dude. We don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And then everything just goes back to zero. And that game is business. Business evolves. Marketplace changes. Prices go up. Prices go down. Like everything is always changing. And that's why it's so important to understand your overhead when you're going to drift. Is just, how do I make this sustainable? What do I need to hopefully net enough to feed my family? And what does this actually look like in more of a long-term setting versus just me being a driver?
Yeah.
It's like the hardest thing to evolve to when you start as a core driver.
Yeah.
Like I don't consider myself a business person. Like I was never like, I'm going to grow up and own a business. That was never me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good at skateboarding. Wow, I'm good at drifting. I like the action of it. You know, like I barely enjoy working on cars. I like driving the car.
I'm the same way. So
you know what I mean? So it's like,
I help Dad wrench, but I'm like, damn, I want to be as least involved in this, like this wrenching on its side as I possibly can. Not because it's not like, you know, not because that's the way that, you know, we structure the program or anything, or like, oh, I don't want to do it, so I don't have to. Dad gets on my ass and I have to help with certain things, but especially he's even kind of came around to understand that like we're more effective as a program if I just focus on driving and I spend a few hours sim training a day rather than, you know, hand tools at the shop. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
what wrenches on something like.
That's what I was going to say. Like you eventually work your way up to where you're like, I want everyone on my team to be a specialist in their department. Like I love Adrian as a mechanic because he is trying to be the best mechanic he can be. And he loves me as a driver because I am trying to be the best driver I can be. And then you have the transparency of going, hey, Adrian, I don't love to wrench on the car. And he's like, but don't worry, I don't love to drive the car. So now we're a good balance.
Yeah.
He likes to work on it. I like to break it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good because if you can kind of craft a program where everybody, like you just said, everyone's a specialist at everything, you've kind of got everybody going max set for for one big result. You know, my dad never once has been like, I want to try and drive the car. And our crew guys that do drive their own cars, when they're at the event, they're literally just giving 150% because they want to see me have the best opportunity to put all the hard work and preparation that I've been working on outside of the shop. They want to see me have the best tool and the best chance at using that, you know, that machine and kind of getting results for everybody. Because what they know just as much as I know, like when we win an event, I don't win an event, we win an event. Like RAR wins an event. The guys that put blood, sweat, and tears in between every practice and comp timeout and rushing and changing shit out and changing gears every time I'm like, oh, it's not right. Yeah. You know, they know that all that work is what fuels me and keeps it going. So,
but dude, watch how this unfolds. So you start drifting, you end up getting one buddy to help you, you get two buddies to help you, maybe your dad's helping you, whatever the math is, and then suddenly there's a little 4-piece team. And then suddenly you do it for a year, and then you go into like year 2, and then like one of the kids is like butting heads with you, but then you have to talk to them about it, or you're making mistakes on the track, or you're not setting your tire pressures correctly, or you're not bolt checking, or like, and where this is going is this is just like business. These are employees. This is somebody on your team that is not performing at their top level to make the team go where it needs to go. And you end up having to go, hey man, this is my program. And because I want to do this when I'm 70, I need to make the best decisions. And unfortunately, X, Y, and Z. And that feels just like the print shop in business when you know you have the wrong person in the wrong seat and you have to change that person. And it's difficult.
Yeah.
So through racing taught me how to hire and fire. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, that is. When my first 3 years that I worked at Tilly's from like 16 to 19, I think. Maybe, yeah, 16 to 19, maybe it was 16 to 20. But I was a assistant store manager, and I was the hiring and training and development manager. So my whole job every day, because it was like seasonal hires, I was always interviewing people, I was always firing people, and I was always hiring people, and I was always figuring out, and through the day and weeks, just examining who performs best where, and then how to structure that.
Exactly.
And I think that has kind of taught me to, when I'm in the driver's seat and I'm like waiting for them to do stuff, like I'll pick apart every moment. And I'm just like, I'll kind of get frustrated with that, but he knows that I'm not being an asshole. He knows that I'm just seeing things from like a bird's eye view level. And I'm kind of watching how they approach from the moment the car gets in to the moment the car gets out. Mm-hmm. How do they approach who's doing what, who's going where? And I kind of see sometimes like the disorganization where they've got like two guys changing tires, but then nobody's doing fuel, or the car's hot as shit and nobody's popping the hood to, you know, get the blower on the radiator and kind of cool it down. And I'll always be like, why are we doing that? Because you got so much adrenaline in you when you're in the car. You know, you just came off the track and you're trying to go back out because like you're like, oh shit, like this setup's wrong. They're doing a quick change. You're not even unstrapping, but then you're like, oh, we've been in here for 10 minutes. Nobody's put fuel in the car. So now the car's set up, but now you got to fuel it. And so I'm like, why isn't this getting done? And then you're like, you know, you get out of practice and you're like, all right, team meeting. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing that. We got to make sure we stick to this, because one thing that I learned in a conversation with Odie is he was like, when you get to FD, like Pro 1, like one of the biggest keys is like, how fast can you get the car in the pits and back out on track? Because there's such limited practice that if you want to remain competitive, you got to milk all those practice laps and you've got to get it out there. And I even saw a video, maybe it was your video, maybe it was someone else's, like
how race out of the pit.
Yes, just to get in grid. Because they're like, they need to get out there and get a lap so they can get a baseline, whether it's like, hey, this isn't going to work or this is going to work. We need to come back and immediately change this so that we can go back out and get practice.
Yeah, and if you're in that, so what we're talking about is in Formula Drift, at a certain time, the cars are allowed to leave the pit and go to practice. And it's down to the second where, let's say it's 12:30. At 12:30, every single car will rush out of their pit. And the difference being is that Formula Drift's practice can be so short that if you're in the top quarter, right? So if you're the 3/4 of that group, you may not get multiple runs. Like the first few guys may get 4 runs, and the last guy in line in that practice may only get 3 or 2. You know what I mean? So that's a huge difference when it comes down to being on time, being prepared, and during practice, like Odie was mentioning to you, like flipping the car as quick as possible and getting right back out there. But all that to say, like, is the same in business to teach you, like, oh, cool, we can better our process. Hey team, here's what I noticed at that race. I would like to implement this. Here's why I'm implementing this, right? Like, for me, especially when my dad was helping me a lot, I always had to remember the goal, because it's difficult when you have like a son and a dad combo. And it's like, well, I want to implement this. Well, why? Well, no, here's why. And it can be muddy, right? Versus just an employee to a business owner where you're just like, hey, man, this is what we will do. And this is why. And it will work. Watch. And so for me, it was just always reminding them of the goal. Like, guys, 2% better. That's all we got to be, just 2% better. And I intuitionally know that this will make us a little bit better. Can we try this? Yes. Beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yep. And a little bit better every day, or a little bit better in every single aspect of your machine, shows big results.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, oh, it's just a small change. It's just a couple seconds saved, but everything adds up.
But also as
brick by brick.
Also as the, owner and operator of your own racing program, if you're not going to be honest with your crew and you're going to allow them to keep making these mistakes because you can't tell them in the right way, or you're too afraid to explain to them, or you got a guy on your team that's not going to make it long term because he's straight up unhappy. He doesn't even want to do it. And he's telling you like, I don't like working in this heat. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And you're just like, I need you, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Certainly.
You know what I mean? So that's what I learned too, is like calling it what it is and being open and honest about it allows your program to go way further than you thought, because the next kid coming in may be the right dude.
Yeah. Because it's a business. Your program's a business, just like any workplace. People, you got to get hired and fired. And so if you're underperforming or the drive isn't there, or you're slacking at the track as a pit worker, complaining is the same thing as like complaining at work, like, oh, I want to go home, or like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm going to hide and sit on my phone. It's that lack of discipline and effort is the same thing, just in different ways. And much like it holds a business or company back, it holds you and your program back. So
yeah, dude,
it's kind of neat. Yeah, that's a good thing to touch on. Well, one thing I want to kind of get into, because since I've known you since the dawn of time, you've driven an S13, but now all of a sudden I think last year, 2023 is when you kind of started the project and kind of rolled it out, the Accelera Tire GR86 build. So kind of give us some info on that. First of all, I want to know kind of how it came about, because that's something new. You're not driving FD, and then you bring Accelera on board to build this crazy machine, and you're doing the LZ World Tour with it. I have a feeling we'll see you roll into competition with it in the next year or two. That's my own theory, but I don't know if that's on your radar. But yeah, kind of give us some insight on how you got started with that.
Yeah, it was really cool. The story is very special to me because it really all starts with Kaylee. So there was a chick named Kaylee. She was working with Accelera. I called Accelera in 2018 because I wanted to get back into racing in 2019. And I seen on Instagram, Accelera made a post and they were like, we are a drift tire. And I'm like, no one's ever heard of y'all. Y'all are not a drift tire. You know what I mean? Like, Let me hit you up. If you want to get into drifting, let me hit you up and let's talk about this. So I distinctly remember calling, didn't know Kaylee at the time. Hey, what up? I'm Nate. I need free tires. Phone hangs up. Hey, what up? It's Nate. I need free tires. Phone hangs up. And I'm like, I got the value to get free tires. And I remember my mechanic at the time was just like, just buy the tires. And I was like, fine. And I bought the tires and we went racing. And I remember the first tire the first set of tires I purchased, I did a giveaway. And I was like, I need everybody to tag Accelera in Tire Streets and let them know that we're here, blah, blah, blah. And it like spiked their algorithm. Long story short, I end up meeting Kaylee. Kaylee ends up becoming one of my business mentors. So Kaylee and we worked the first year together. Half the year I did not get free tires. She helped me in the Endless Search for Tires tour, where she was like, hey man, the Endless Search for Tires is over. We got you. So first year we started with tires. And then, second year we started with tires and money. And then it was like the value just kept going up and up. And she was like, Nate, you're worth more than this. So third year was like tires and more money. And then we were like, let's do something special. Like, let's do something different. And let's try to create a machine that would be able to handle this tire that we want to create. And I was like, well, my 240 is broken, bent, and sideways. You know what I mean? Like, this car is not going to do what you need it to do. And they were like, well, what's it cost for a new car? And so back to business, right? I had to basically put a little breakdown together of what it would be like to build a new car. And they were like, yep, approved. And then they sent me all the money and I built the GR86. And that was a project that, Kaylee and I worked really hard to green light from Accelera, the factory, and the factory had seen the growth of 144 in our relationship over the last few years. And so then boom, dude, I was able to build a GR86. And the original background story was I've been in a 240 my whole life, and I looked up to Chris Forsberg, and I called Forsberg and I was like, I need a new Z. Like, I need a new Z. This is gonna be a car. I got the money. We're good. And it was kind of like I didn't fit into that box at the time, right? Like, the vision was that we would be teammates. And for example, his tire partner is not my tire partner. And I'm like, no. Accelera is paying for all of this. Like, I can't be on your tire. So I just didn't fit in that box. So from there we pivoted, and I remembered meeting Darren, who is from Toyota, through Formula Drift. And he signed like Turek and Osbo and Jonathan Castro, and he was in my backyard because Toyota's in my backyard in Dallas. So I called him, like, hey, can I get a car? He's like, here's a car. Then we built a car.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story, because I feel like you are probably one of the first people who's like not a factory back driver or, has some crazy 20-year history with a company to build something like a relationship that started from you literally buying tires just a few years before with your own money to them saying, hey, we're down to build this car with you and pay for it, which is nuts.
Yeah, and so like, let's go a little more broad on this, being that if you're talking to a partner right now and you're trying to work with them, the thing that I preach a lot about, Ryan, is like, so as soon as I knock on your door and I ask for something, I have lost my leverage, right? Like, I've lost my leverage. Hey, can I get free parts? Hey, I need shocks. Hey, I need wheels. You've lost your leverage. You need something from someone. And that is such an important key when you're in conversations. Like at SEMA, this is like my tactic right here. You know what I mean? It's like, I go up to a potential partner and I'm just like, how do I work for you? 144 does this. We can create media. We can tell a story. I can go to these certain events. Where do you want me? How do I earn this from your company? In what value can I trade a service for X? And that has gone so far for me, because suddenly the ball's in their court. Suddenly they're like, well, wait, so if I give you a motor, you'll go to these 3 events that I want my motor to be displayed at. Yes. Okay, cool. I design my own tours. I can go where I want to go. Oh, cool. That works. Here's the motor. Sick. Thank you so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, so the days of going, hey, what up? I'm a drifter. I need this free part. It's like, you lost your leverage. Can I get this? Lost your leverage. You go up to people in business and you go, I offer these services that I feel great about. Do any of these fit in your box? And then honestly, right, giving away all the secrets, I usually start with like, can this be a 3-year deal? Are you interested in a drifting program for 3 years straight? Well, why? Year 1, we start marketing, and on the 12th month, we have a net result. Year 2, whatever we were producing and marketing is now going to actually have market share and value. Like, people are going to buy the engine after I race it for a year. Oh, that's right. So year 2 is when the results come. And then year 3 is where hopefully we get to do something special, or we get to mix it up and expand on however we could expand together. So that really changes the dynamic when talking to a company, because suddenly you're not going, oh, I got this free product and now I'm going to work for them for a year, but I don't really know what I'm delivering to them. And then the year goes around and you're at SEMA and they're like, yeah, we forgot about you. Like, we gave you that stuff in January, and then like now we're here in November, and like, what do you need? It's like, I don't really play that game anymore.
Yeah, which is crazy that you kind of mentioned that, because I feel like I went through a very similar thing where I had to learn what I brought to the table for companies and what they needed out of me and what I could provide to build the relationship to something bigger than what it is just at the start. And I'm just going to be super transparent. This is something that I kind of ran into with Radium Engineering. I first got on board with them, I want to say in 2021. It was when we did the LS swap with ISR, when I got that partnership on board. Season 1 of Clutch Kickers, when they kind of helped us pretty much get going with the V8 swap. and we obviously needed a better fuel system. Then you can't just run stock 350Z stuff. So Radium made their drop-in surge tank setup, and we got that, which I love because I think stock Z gas tank is the wave. Like the saddle tank, right where it's located, I think it's the best.
Probably couldn't even get free product.
No, definitely didn't get free product, and I almost shot myself in the foot because obviously I got a discount based on what I feel deserving of anyways, because I was a micro person. I mean, I'm still a micro person, but like no one knew who I was. Like I'm just some random kid emailing that no one's ever heard of except for the people that have seen me at Clutch Kickers. And so I got a discount, and I got the setup going. And then to be honest, I dropped the ball. I failed to market. I failed to deliver. I failed to create content. And I don't want to make an excuse, but part of it was because I had came down here to work at BC Racing, and my dad and the car were operating back home in Jacksonville in a very small storage unit, which we still operate out of. And my dad is not a person who can kind of create content. And just due to me being down here working full time and in school, there was a huge disconnect of me in the car and making content with the car.
But see, that's a lesson to say, and this goes for if you're in the position to do so, don't take the discount. Like how do I word this? When I was 2020, right? When I was in a similar boat where like Nate's name was out there a bit, but I'm reaching out to random new companies like Deechworks or something. I'm like, hey, what up? I need these injectors and this and this. And, so if a company doesn't believe in you and they're like, well, hey, Ryan, take this discount, run this sticker on the car, make this content for us and still pay us. I now would say the correct thing to do, if you can do it, is to say to them, hey, actually, don't offer me the discount. I'm going to invest in your company like 100% at full retail cost. I'll just pay you for the product. Just know that I love your product enough that I'm paying you in full for it. And then down the road, just remember that I'm believing in you guys. And then leave it at that. Because look at the work that's created, a sticker on the car, create content, and pay that company. You paid them, put a sticker on the car, and delivered them like hundreds of dollars worth of either time or brain power. You need a camera.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
Which all costs money.
Don't do that.
The effort into making content, making reels.
Whatever 15% off you got on the freaking $400 part, just pay the $400.
Yep.
Or whatever it is. $1,000 part. Just save up another fucking paycheck and pay the whole thing off. And don't deliver them anything. Don't run a sticker on the car.
Yeah.
And be like, but I'm running your stuff. Just remember my name, Ryan Acevedo.
Yep.
That's it. That's what I would be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then when kind of things changed and I needed a different fuel setup, I reached back out to them and they were kind of like, hey, like I've got a folder of, the marketing people. They're like, I got a folder of like, that's just empty, like no pictures, no video. And I was like, damn, you know what? Like, that's my apologies. And that's exactly what we did. I said, hey, because I remember I asked for like a step up in partnership, being truthfully not earned it, like not delivered anything, but just driving with the thing on the car and a small sticker. And then I remember they kind of humbled me and I was like, it was such an eye opener. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I was like, this is what we need. You already have the part numbers because I asked for it in the first email. Just bill me for whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whether it's the same discount, slightly more, or if you want to just charge me full retail.
Well,
and I was like, just do that. And we need the product. And this is exactly what we want to go with. And we still work with them now till this day. I met with them at PRI. And now we obviously try and work hand in hand and create as much content as we can. And we have a big content kind of thing around that plan, but unfortunately it's with the new car, which hasn't been working. So we're still just going back and forth testing it. Like I got stuff I need to deliver with that car, specifically with the whole new Radium setup. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And I can't wait to make content with, but that car is like a shit show right now. So it's like, I've just been postponing that, unfortunately, but
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the game, like in my partners, they hate when I say that stuff, because I feel like it's such an old school mentality to say, hey, Ryan, I'm going to give you 15% off your short order and you need to put a sticker on your car, deliver me content and pay the remainder of the bill. Like, what else do you have? Like, what else do you have to offer?
Yeah.
Right? You're like, well, I run the sticker on the car. Like, what's going to change for you in the next few years? And that's where you have to be creative about the services you offer. because you've got the sticker on the car. Like, I don't know. It's kind of a complicated mess, but you know what I mean?
No,
It's
yeah, I
just
know
like,
what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Because then,
like kids are trained to lose all their leverage, put all these stickers on their cars, pay for all these products still. And then when they grow up and they're actually kicking ass, like they may be the kid that company chooses, but that's just because they were like kind of that little diamond in the rough, where if more kids just knew, don't run the stickers on, like if no logo cars were sick, like not having stickers on your car is cool.
yeah,
But the stickers you have on your car matter.
definitely.
Like that's the vibe I'm on.
For sure. And I think collectively, when people run these stickers for discounts, which is what I've kind of phased out of my program, it devalues everyone as a whole. Like,
Absolutely.
it devalues the entire driver field. If all these people with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 followers, these like small influencers and up and coming drivers that have, marketability, if everyone just takes the 30% off discount and buys, whatever engine parts, wheels, fancy stuff, doesn't matter. If they're like, why do I even need to believe and invest in you when 800 of these kids are going to run these, we'll just use wheels as an example, at 20% off, and we still make money.
Yeah.
They're getting a discount and we're still over the cost margin. You know what I mean? And if everyone stopped doing that, then people would be like, damn, people aren't content with just running a sticker and getting a 20% off discount. Like,
That's the goal.
It costs more. But, that's kind of something everybody has to collectively start doing.
Yeah,
and understanding the value in.
And it's
themselves.
tough, bro. Like, I'm going to call my graphic designer, Austin, out. My graphic designer, Austin, will put logos on his car. He's not sponsored at all, right? He's a graphic designer who loves to drift. He drifts in Final Bout. And Austin is
He has the white FRS?
Yeah.
That thing is cool.
He's coming up a little right now because we're putting some light on him. But, like,
hell yeah.
He's a great driver, awesome human. But, like, he's like, monster on the thing, vortex. Like, he's just going off. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, just looks cool. So, like, there's that version of, like, no, I really got a discount and I really ran a logo on my car. And, like, this is good for me. And, like, I saved money and I put their logo on and I look cool now. Like, there is that viewpoint. All I'm saying is, what are you going to do after that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Certainly. And I think you need to assess a partnership when you're going into it. There's definitely, and we're not saying there's anything wrong with a relationship starting at that, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you as a driver need to say, I know that I'm going to build something with this company. I know that I can build a relationship to where on year 2 and 3 and 4, it's not just a discount. I can show these people what I'm delivering, what I can deliver, what I'm going to grow into. And if they don't believe in me now, they're going to. You kind of have to pick and choose that because not every company is going to see it that way.
I mean, I would much rather say, hey, I need to buy this $1,000 seat. Okay, Nate, Ricaro's going to give you 10% off the seat for your sponsorship package or whatever it is. And I'm like, cool, that's $100. I would be like, how do I offer you something for this $100? Like, what do you want in return of this $100? You know what I mean? Like, because a sticker on the car and me doing, like, I will do one social post for $100. So that's our agreement. I'll do one Instagram post for the $100, the 10% off the seat. Thank you so much. Send the seat. So now I got my discount, did not put a logo on the car, and got to post about them on my socials.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just, like, what is the discount worth? It's not worth all these things that they make us do. Sticker, posts, probably 3 posts a year, whatever the math was. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think drivers need to learn that it's okay to, negotiate. It's okay to counter. It's okay to fight back. Because if you email somebody, nowadays most companies have like a tier system. It's just the norm because they know that if they just send you this bronze tier and they're like, hey, 20% off, we need 4 social media posts and here's the dimension of the sticker and the file, that most people are going to take it. But understand your worth and understand what your time and effort's worth. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, and like if we go back to our Excel spreadsheet, you would basically take on your spreadsheet and you would be like, I saved $100 from this Recaro seat and I did all of these things. Thus, all of these things were worth $100.
Yeah.
And then someone would look at that and go, really? Well, how long did it take you to do the Instagram post? Well, I got with a friend to make a video and I paid him a little day rate of like $80 and then we made the video and then I did that 4 times and then this and then that. And then you're like, well, that actually cost you like $500. to get the $100 off.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, I lost money.
Yep.
That's what's happening.
Yep. And people got to understand that. And then obviously, like I said, circling back, there is opportunities where, you know that something can come of it in the future and that you can build something with them to get more out of it. But that's not always the case. And it's kind of just up to your own interpretation to.
Okay, so let's
to
full
understand
circle it.
that.
And we can get off this topic right quick. But it's like, to full circle that was the true tactic of Accelera and Nate Hamilton. It was, even when I bought tires, I was doing exactly what I would do if I got free tires. I bought tires. I went to a race, had some photos taken, delivered the photos to the rep. Hey, what up? Went out to Grid Life, had a great time. Here's a little photo package. Boom. Hey, what up? Here's this. Boom. Hey, what up? Here's that. And I just had a relationship with the rep. And I did what I could do to deliver what I could afford on me to them for nothing, because I was just buying the tires because they kept saying no. And that's what I would say to do. I would say to Radium, hey, Radium, I'm going to buy that at full speed ahead. Okay, great. Happened to be at the track and just wanted to make this Instagram reel. Here you go. I also got first place and won the fucking thing. And then they're just like, wow, Ryan, thank you for that. And you just keep doing that and don't ask for anything.
Exactly. So we'll kind of get off that topic, but
Yep.
there is something I want to talk about because, coming off conversation with marketing, sponsorships, the new car, you've obviously been doing a lot of competition stuff, LZ World Tour. The new car you can't really do LS Fest in, but, I can see from outside looking in that you're slowly shaping into more and more competition stuff with the GR. Do you have any intent on trying to build your own path back to FD with that car, or what's kind of your plans? Because you're a competitive dude. You know what I mean? You belong, and I know that you probably, for the competition aspect, want to be in FD. That always doesn't necessarily make the most sense, and because you're a businessman, you know that, and I know you wouldn't put yourself in a position where you kind of put yourself like you did before. Not that you put yourself there, but
Yeah.
it just unfolded like that. So do you have any intent on getting yourself and that GR86 into Formula Drift in, let's say, the next few years? Or
Oh, man. I mean,
if you can talk about stuff like that.
no, for sure. I definitely can talk about it. It is such a complicated conversation, right? Where it's like, I think I mentioned on a Formula Drift reel, which got taken a little out of context, which was like, we built a car for pro racing, and that's what the GR86 is. It's very capable. It's a pro car. My program operates like a grassroots tour, right? Where my mechanics are going on 4 years in their retention of our relationship and business. So I'm definitely feeling much more confident in the total package of my program. But at the same time, for the vision of what we've been building, it does not include Formula Drift, right? Like, I still visualize myself returning to Formula Drift in a seat in a program. I don't visualize myself going back with the GR86 in my program, because my program is balancing t-shirts, grassroots tours, and the contracts and the freedom that I've created to do what I'm doing is not really desired to be compromised by Formula Drift. But if Papadakis Racing calls me and go, hey man, Toyota's hyped on you, come drive our Toyota, I will do Formula Drift 2025. You know what I mean? Like, so I hate to say that, because like, I don't feel like the fans love to hear that, because the lust to just be in FD is so heavy, and I want to return to FD, but it's kind of like, it's like we're riding this like summer wave, and my team is just like balanced. And if we get burnt out and we're like, hey, partner, we need to pause this event because we are just not like balanced correctly. Like, we blew an engine and we're a little behind on maybe it's our monthly total of spend, and we're going to cancel this one event. Is everyone cool with this? And everyone says, yes, no problem. The freedom in that program for me is beautiful. And I just have yet to compromise that with like a season of FD.
Yeah. Yeah, because that makes sense. It sounds like you've kind of structured your entire business and a program around what you're doing now and how you're approaching drifting. And that, unfortunately, just doesn't really fit in with the operational side and what it would kind of take and how running a season of FD would be.
The internal conversations like in our business with our partners, 80% of them were just like, please tell me that GR is not going to Formula Drift, right? Like that, if that puts it in perspective of like what we created at 144 with the grassroots tours and how we are going, where do you guys want to go? Y'all want me to go there? You want me to go there? You want me to go there? Awesome, dude. We get to do Fuel Fest and Grid Life and LZ World Tour and like Holly LS Fest in the 240 when it doesn't conflict with timing. And so then it's like to compromise all that and be like, all right, guys, we're going to FD. They're like, don't do that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. You being out of FD and kind of being such a pioneer and having such a, I feel like you personally have like a very forward thinking outlook on things. I think you think ahead of the game for the most part in terms of business and how you approach everything. What are some things that like you would want to change about professional drifting, being that you've spent now multiple years on this grassroots tour, driving stuff competitive and not competitive that's so different than your standard Formula Drift style event and run of competition? Are there things that you would change in competition now that you've driven stuff like the LZ World Tour and kind of now you even just go out to FD and watch it from a different perspective? Are there things you would change and think should change for professional drifting, at least here in the States, to how it's operating right now? Or,
dude, if you see me on the couch watching Formula Drift, bro, I am like, you've never seen me mad. Most people don't see me mad. And I get so pissed watching Formula Drift, respectfully Formula Drift. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand it. And I just get so upset that I don't understand it. I can watch some runs and I'm like, holy shit. Connor Shanahan just beat Frederick Oswald right there. He just did it. And then it's one more time. And then I'm like, wow, he backed it up with like one little bot. And then it's Frederick wins. I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? So like when I watch drifting, I struggle to understand it. And imagine me rolling in a crowd that doesn't even understand drifting at all and trying to explain to them to pay money into this program that we struggle to explain how people win. That's the foundation for me that is just probably what's stopping me from going back to Formula Drift. Like going back to Formula Drift, I feel like I need a storyline. I need momentum. I need a huge partnership deal. I need all these building blocks to get the higher ups to go, this is a package we're excited about. And if Nate drives a little bit better than we expect, he could go all the way. And I feel like when guys don't put all those puzzle pieces together, whoever has the closest puzzle piece is the closest to getting that call. Now, I'm speaking way out. You know what I mean? Like people are probably going to drill me on that, but it's just the idea that I don't understand it. So that's one of the things that I feel like really hurts the sport is just calling it like it is and allowing the actual driver to win. Like if the underdog wins, the underdog wins. Like why can't Jonathan Cash be a champion? Why couldn't he?
Yeah.
Like why does he get knocked out in certain situations and timing and he gets up the ladder this far, but then that one dude's always going to take it? Like why? So, sorry, Ryan. You know what I mean?
But
like,
you're good. Yeah.
So that's heavy on my heart.
You're passionate about it. So
yeah.
it's
and then,
good.
And then just going back to the value of Formula Drift, I think if they just coached, like I think if it was mandatory that they coached business, and when you receive your certificate of licensing at Formula Drift, you were required to put in this many hours with Ryan Sage and whoever to coach you on public speaking and brand and being a full race car driver in the etiquette it would take to be on NBC and like be a true top representative of the sport. I think that would help a lot of those guys out because they're just like us coming off from wherever they're coming from to just make it there. And then when they make it there, it is what it is. And there just isn't that upper level of like respect that I feel is missing. And I love Formula Drift. Like I've been there all year, like I've been around it. I've been honest with everybody there. Like I want to help that become more and more and more. Like I want my son to grow up and be a Formula Drift driver. So I'm not trying to shit on Formula Drift. I'm just saying like what in the last 10 years has changed? Like literally, like has tracks, some drivers,
small changes to the
but like
approach
what's
of judging.
changed in the show? Like, why do I still am confused at who wins the race? Like,
Definitely. I love what you said about you kind of wish that, like, for example, you mentioned like a class with Sage, like teaching business etiquette, teaching presentation, because what I think people forget is like, just like Formula One and just like NASCAR and motocross and all these other motorsports, as a driver, you are a direct representation of the series, and the series is a business. And how you present yourself on camera, on social media, during these interviews is how people perceive not just you, but the entire sport. When somebody that watches is like a diehard Formula One fan and you tell them to go check out FD because they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a competition drift car driver. And they're like, what is that? And then they turn it on and they see this this is not FD directly. I mean, I'm more so talking about the drivers, the programs, the people involved. When they have like a very not so professional vibe and look, to people that take motorsports serious and are fans of serious motorsports, which is what Formula Drift is, it almost looks silly to them in a way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I take that very serious. You've seen it. I ordered polos directly from you because if I'm not in my driver's suit at the track, I am in my, like chino slacks with brand new white Vans and a polo, because the second that if I might have to be on camera in between a random battle or in between practice, I want to be in my most professional, visible and approachable manner for being on camera and stuff like that.
And to that point too,
that.
like just taking the material out of it for the kids at home going, I don't want to buy new Vans and I don't want to have to wear nice clothes. It's about how you speak. You can be
Definitely
in no t-shirt and you can speak professionally, sweating your face off in a race car. It's about how you carry yourself and about how you're going to represent the sport in a total capacity that will allow the sport at any moment to be seen and then go, damn, like those kids really know what they're doing. Or we just need to call it what it is, like monster trucks, and just be the show. Just be a monster truck show and let it be just goofy and animated. And he bumped him and he's spun out. And
I feel like we're at a very awkward in between. That's a great example.
Yeah.
I feel like Formula Drift as a whole is at an awkward in between of being a show and the highest level of professional drift car driving.
Yep. And I think most of the class wants to feed their family, earn a salary racing, and actually be excited about the title of I'm a Formula Drift driver.
Definitely. And that obviously leans way more towards being a professional high-level drift series.
Which is what it should be at this point now that it's 20 years old.
For sure. And that's obviously clearly what they're aiming at and not a show. So I think there are definitely some strategic changes that could be made to present and take that approach. Because at the end of the day, to grow, you're trying to reach people who don't know who you are. You're reaching the audience that has never heard of Formula Drift. If you want to get as big as Formula One and NASCAR and, motocross, you have to build an audience. And building an audience is capturing people who have never heard of you, who don't know what it is. And you need to kind of market it to be approachable, to be entertaining. And one thing that sucks is because I don't know the solution, but it being a judged format eliminates so much opportunity for people to tune in because...
I mean, yeah. And like, so on that topic of the judges, right? Like for me personally, I think it would be sweet to simplify the judging, meaning like when I was in Ireland, right? Like that kind of, I don't quote me, but I think that same kind of panel of judges was like your Drift Masters judges, if you will. And it's like the name of the driver means nothing. Driver A, driver B goes through zone 1. Driver B outside of zone 1. Driver A, 1 point. Driver A, driver B go to zone 2. Driver B inside zone. Driver A outside zone, 1 point B. They just have a tally. So it's just like, yes, no, yes, no. Oh, he has 3, he has 2, 3 wins. In the zone, in the zone, in the zone. You have 3 marks. You did it correctly. You went around there correctly. Whose name was that? Oh, that was so-and-so. He wins. That's it. And I feel like it's so different in America. In America, it's like the name is first. And the run can be swayed in a lot of ways. Because, well, then did he slow down there and then that caused that? Well, how the heck do you know that? How do you know that?
Yeah, it's microsecond, millisecond decisions.
And I just feel like from my mom watching, it should just be like, well, Mom, he missed outer zone 1. Like he didn't get his points in that zone. And if you miss one zone out of 3 zones, you might lose. Oh, that makes sense. That's it. It's as simple as it needs to be. I don't know. I'm just kind of
Which
talking
on
shit,
paper, it is theoretically like that, but I think the general consensus is the way that battles have gone, especially this year, and they're addressing rulebook changes and being a little bit more precise about what they determine is
No, man, it's
like
story.
straightens up and
It's
tires off.
championship. It's storyline. It's the longevity of the year. What story are we telling? What is the momentum going into Irwindale? Like that's what it is. It isn't like the drivers need to drive. It isn't like ah,
It's okay, dude. It's okay to be passionate about it. That's
you
a
know
good
what I mean?
thing.
It's just that's what I learned in Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, and you've seen that at Drift Masters. Josiah took a run, 60. Adam took a run, 60. The bar was 80. Go home, kids. Don't care about your name. Don't care how long it took you to get here. You drove a 60 lap. You go home. Go back to Florida. And Adam's a huge name. And I'm sure he wanted to do better than that. And I'm sure under whatever circumstances he was proud that he got that score because that's what he knew he ran. And then that was that. That was that. There's no buttering that up. It goes, boom. That's your score. Where like, I can watch some shit and be like, well, no wonder they took qualifying away. Like, because qualifying was just like, I could literally just like write the qualifying order down damn near prior to the race off the name of the driver.
Yeah. Which says something.
I love for you, Formula Drift. I love y'all.
Yeah, I love FD too. I mean, I'm on the road chasing my pro spec license. Hopefully, we'll drive FD next year. That's my goal. At least I want to drive pro spec in 2025, and kind of I think I'm ready to program wise and marketing wise and the deals that I have lined up and the preparation of our program. I think we're ready to finally make the push.
Yeah.
So
you can do it, man. Just think of it as any other event.
Yeah.
When you go to Formula Drift, one thing that when looking back on my own career, I wish I would have treated it just like any other event. And I think like if and when I ever do return, I will do that. Just go drive it like it's just whatever event you were going to go drive next month.
Yeah.
Like don't be sitting here over the winter going, holy shit, 2025, this is my year. I'm going to Pro Spec. You have 4 rounds. First off, 4 rounds is very difficult in any motorsports like discipline to win a championship because just 4 odds out of 8 odds, right? Like you got to be on point each one.
Yeah, each round holds more percentage of value to
Yes.
the overall championship. So you need to technically be more consistent and deliver results more frequently to remain at the top. Versus
But just when
having
you
8
when you're
opportunities.
there, it's no different than any other event. Because what you did naturally to get yourself there is what is going to get you to win that race. So don't go there and be like, wow, I'm in Formula Drift's Pro Spec.
Yeah.
Like, this is heavy. No.
Don't change your approach.
It's
Don't
light.
change your mentality.
You get 4 awesome rounds in a cool new marketplace. Go have fun, smile, and focus.
Hell yeah. That's something I love about you, man. You always try and preach just kind of being yourself and just kind of not conforming, if that makes sense.
That's the synopsis.
Yeah, but that's good though, man. That's good. People in drifting, I feel like a lot of people have lost authenticity. So, and people are kind of, seeing people have success and being online personalities and personas. People's initial first idea is to like try and be that and try and be someone you're not, and it just lacks.
And it's I use this analogy. It's the water in the palm analogy, right? Where it's like, I hope for Ryan Acevedo when he goes to Formula Drift's Pro Spec, he holds the water in the palm nice and calm, right? Like if you have water in your palm and you squeeze it, what happens?
The water comes out.
You lose it.
Yeah.
You lose it. So if you go there and you have that opportunity and you hold that wheel so tight and you make dumb mistakes, you lose it. You're going to not be satisfied with your racing results. You're going to not feel like you drove like yourself. You're going to carry that into race number 2. Race number 2 is halfway of the season. Then you're going to try to bounce back, and then you're 50% done with the season, and then 3 and 4 are going to be X, Y, and Z, right? So I call it the water in the palm approach. You're able to go to Pro Spec. You don't need Pro Spec. You just chose to go to Pro Spec. And then you can calmly and aggressively, which are the double-edged sword,
Yeah.
drive your runs, have fun, and have the best race that you can have. But if you force it and you squeeze it and you're tight, you lose it.
That's why I always try and preach to people, kind of going hand in hand with that, is I always preach like composure. Like the guys that generally perform the best at like the pro-am level are the most just composed, well-rounded guys. It's not that they drive the absolute best or they're miles ahead of everybody else. It's that they remain calm they're in the same headspace 3 weeks of the event as they are the night before, when they wake up and they put the suit on and they go out for their first lap. They're so level-headed and composed, and they're so trained mentally to handle the situation that they perform the best all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's like that foundation on the mentality is that they don't need it. They don't actually, like, you don't actually need, in your career with the podcast you're doing, the brand you've got going on, like, going through pro spec will be beautiful and it'll be fun and it'll be an accomplishment for you. But your career and your life and the weight of it all it doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't matter that much. And when you go through pro spec and you win your first championship, hopefully, right? It's going to be awesome. But if you don't, it also doesn't mean anything different. It's not going to change the value of your partnerships. It's not going to change the value of anything in your program. You shouldn't place the value on that. Then you go there and you just have fun with it. And then hopefully, you get a better result than like needing it.
Damn, that's good advice, Nate. You're full of good advice. I got to have you on for episode 2 with a notepad so I can just write more shit down.
Just listen back to this one, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just going to loop it.
But all this is like shit I just tell myself, man. Like, because to dig myself out of the hole that I put myself in when I left in Juku, it was very difficult. Like I said, man, I was like, oh, I'm going to go start this business and I'll be right back. And then I was like, whoa, Ken Harrison at Njuku helped me so much. And racing takes so much money. And we were traveling this many times a year. And how did we do that? How am I going to do this? And like, I had to learn all this. So when I got back into drifting, after I basically let it go, because I let it go. When I left Njuku, I was like, I'm going to go screen print. I'm going to do this until I can feed my family. And if I ever get back into drifting, drifting chose me. That's how I felt. And so I tried my best to always carry my own water in the palm approach, which was to the beginning of the podcast when I came off the couch and I went to Holly LS Fest, Vegas, and I got second. I almost won it. And I'd swear to the world, like, no steering wheel and no gas pedal 2 days prior to that event for a year. I got better after not doing anything for a year.
Yeah.
But visualizing it and saying to myself, I get to do this event today. I don't need to win this event. But if I go lap for lap, I get to do this as long as I just stay in the race. And then, Nate, you're second. Holy shit.
Yeah, mental strength and mind space is so overlooked. It's not really overlooked by other professional athletes because it's such a huge part of other professional motorsports drivers' lives in different aspects of racing. And it's such a big part of Olympic athletes and famous basketball players and professional athletes all across the board. They understand the value of the mental headspace and composure and strength and in approachability in that aspect. But I feel like it's such a thing that's overlooked by drifters. And drifters. And then it's a key. It's a big key.
Yeah.
That's what allowed you to get results. I mean, you didn't get, literally on paper, you didn't do any driving. You could not have became a better driver physically than you were when you weren't delivering results.
Exactly.
Nothing changed for you in how much you practice. You didn't practice anymore. You didn't learn any new techniques.
Nope.
You had all the same tools in the box that you had 2 years before. Everything up here
changed.
Connected.
I started to like feel the pavement. I started to pay attention to everywhere I needed to put the car. And I started to visualize, like, instead, I remember this, right? I know we're going to run over our time if you want, but we can keep jamming.
You're fine, yeah.
But it's like, I remember in Formula Drift, on some of my last races, I was sitting in the car and I knew the live stream was like on me before my run. And I would think about what the fans in the stands thought of like my livery and my look. Like I would think, what are they thinking about me? And then I would take my run and I'd spin out or something dumb. So then when I took a break from drifting, I got back into drifting. I just started to be in the moment. And that made me feel the concrete and that made me see the run. And now I feel like I can like see what I'm about to do before I do it. And I'm like immersed in that feeling of like what I'm about to do. And then from there, like we've had a lot of wins. Like I've won more shit taking a break from drifting than I would have if I think I stayed on my old path.
Yeah, no, I love that because I do the same thing. It's almost like it's like a variation of short form manifestation, right? Like seeing yourself attack the course, seeing yourself put putting a car in a specific place, seeing, I don't know about you, but like leading up to an event, like whenever I'm doing something that I'm hyper focused on, whether it's like editing something or, running or being in the gym, listening to music, anytime that I'm hyper focused on something, I'm envisioning myself doing what my next task is in motorsports. Like I spend all of my time in the gym from the time I start working out to the time I leave. All I'm doing is thinking about the next event that I have coming up, but
Yep.
not overthinking it. I'm listening to my favorite music and I'm connecting with myself on a just a different, almost like a spiritual level. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching myself lift
Mm-hmm.
up the trophy at Citrus County Speedway, the track that I've never been to, but I can see myself in my suit in the center of the track for the first time, and seeing, the team and how proud they are, and seeing myself enter on the wall, having never been there, having no, you know, no experience at the track. Somebody out there that same weekend probably was freaking out the week of, I've never driven Citrus. I've never, how do you initiate? At what point? But you don't get there when you get there,
Yeah. Yeah. Can I segue into a really, really cool story about like manifesting?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm gonna tell us a quick story here, folks, with this new opportunity that I'm up to. So I get a phone call from Crispy Media in Dallas, and he's like, "Hey, Sunoco Race Fuel is in Dallas, and they want to do a commercial shoot, and we need a drift car. Is the GR86 ready?" At the time, the GR86 had never been driven. And of course, I answered the phone and I was like, "Of course it's ready, dude. Yeah, when's the shoot?" And they're like, "On this date, be here." I was like, "Awesome." So I go to the shoot, drive the car for the first time I've ever drifted the GR86 ever at a Sunoco commercial shoot. That goes well. And then there is these little like Rush Auto Works, like prototype open wheel cars sitting there that also were a part of the shoot, right? Because they shot like open wheel racing, all different types of racing. And this owner, Doug, goes, "Hey, man, you're looking at my car. You should drive it." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I hop in it like an hour before sunset, take a few laps around it, around the track. And he was like, "Man, you didn't spin out. That's great. Everyone spins out." And I was like, "Cool." Kind of went about my day. Thought, damn, those little cars are sick. Then Doug hits me up. He's like, "Hey, you should come to our shop and just drive these cars for a day." And I'm thinking to myself, like, to your point on manifesting, I'm like, what could this be? Like, what if I go fast in this thing? Like, I should try to just focus really quickly on going fast in this car for this one little day where I may just get to drive this car. Like, it just sounds fun. And I go there and I basically finish a few sessions. And in this form of racing, they have all the data. They have my steering angle, they have my pedals, my brake pressures, they have everything, my GPS locations, my lines. And they were like, "Hey, Nate, you ran the timing of the current points leader in the Rush Racing Series on this track." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" And they're like, "You're fast. You're fast at driving these cars." And I was like, "Cool." And it was just kind of like a connection between Sunoco and this team Rapscallion who had me out. And they like all of us were just kind of connected, and they were like, "Hey, Nate, Sunoco bought the title package or some package at Grid Life. So you could run the Rush Racing Series and drift at Grid Life and help us kind of tell this full story of what Grid Life is." And I was like, "What?" And boom, there it goes again. Check comes in, everything's paid for. Please go race this Rush Racing Series at Grid Life. And I'm sitting here today with you, Ryan, and I'm actually flying out tomorrow to go to Mid-Ohio to run my first race ever.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna watch it.
Isn't that crazy?
It's a nut story. It's crazy because I just saw you and Max at their shop, and I was like, "Damn, those cars are so sick."
You
And then
would
when you
love
got
it.
here, you were like, "Dude, I'm literally going to race those cars tomorrow at Grid Life," and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Well, so the deal with Sunoco was I got 3 races fully, like basically like an arrive and drive for 3 of the races: Road America, Lime Rock, and Laguna Seca, which are huge, right? Like, what? Like, I'm going to race those 3 events. That's epic. And then I'm here in Florida doing some work on the JR86, and I get a phone call, and it's like, "Did you bring all your gear?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, Rush Auto Works, the manufacturer, had like they need a driver, and they called for you. Can you do this?" And I was like, "Well, when is it?" Like, "Tomorrow." And I'm like, "Damn." And I said, "Yes, of course." So then I get to do all 4 of them. So now we get to put points on the board to potentially chase a championship. And I'm speaking way too soon because I have no clue, Ryan, if I'm going to be like 30th in this thing or if I'm going to be like 10th or.
Do you have like a good idea of the track that you're driving tomorrow? Like the physical layout and everything?
So to your point of manifesting, it's like I'm just basically studying Mid-Ohio in a expedited version, but I've never been there.
You never drifted on it or anything?
No.
Oh shit.
No.
That's kind of daunting. But
And
you
this
got
one,
it.
this one is I don't have, I don't think, drifting here at this
Okay.
one. So it's not.
So you've had no reason to know about this track.
No reason.
Damn, I'm so stoked for you. That's sick. Imagine if you pulled out a championship in these Rush cars.
But let's talk a little bit about the difference that's been intriguing to me, which is open wheel racing is time. So like I take a lap, and let's imagine because on my current home track, the Crescent, I'm actually running like a 120 consistently. So I'm running like a 120 consistently, and like the fastest guys run like a 118. So it's like I'm 2 seconds off the pace from what would be like a seasoned karting, a kid that's karting from 5 years old up into he's getting in a Rush open wheel prototype. This is like the first version you would run into before you're like doing crazy like Formula 4 type prototype.
Yeah, IndyCar stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
So it's like this is like the entry to that world. And but the point being there was just like you have data and you have your result. And that's your character. You know what I mean? So like in drifting, it's like your brand and your style and your, it's like, it reminds me of drifting equals I can kickflip, you can kickflip, but whose kickflip's better? And that just becomes what looks better. What looks better? And this new form of racing is like me actually being like, whoa, I need to stay flat foot in 4th gear going down this hill at 120 if I'm going to make this lap time. And like they can show me the math and they can show me where I'm lifting when I say I'm not lifting, but then the data shows I am lifting and they're like, we need you to commit down this hill. And I'm nervous as shit because in drifting, we can go 100 miles an hour on an entry and we're going to decel on most tracks down to 70. And I can go 100 miles an hour in a Rush car and need to turn in and gain 10 mile an hour around this turn. And in my brain, I am trying so hard to commit to this new form of racing, but it's so fun.
damn, dude. Do they rent these cars out? Is there any kind of rental program? Can I like come out and then we organize like a track day where we both drive?
Absolutely.
I would love to do that.
You can come to Texas and I got you.
Dude, we need to get something scheduled.
You
like
will
I'll
love
pay
it.
and everything. Like,
You would love it, dude.
We need to get with this guy and see what kind of rental package price would be, and then we can I'll have my media guy come out and we can shoot like a sick video where it's like 2 professional-ish drift car drivers take on
That's what I'm
road
saying.
racing cars.
And that was the thing with Doug at Rapscallion, right? It was like I drifted the car. Like I'm like counter steering and like I'm in these sections and the car's getting loose and I'm balancing it out and like, because we'll run different types of practice situations where it's like Nate follows, Nate leads, Nate needs to defend, Nate needs, so it's like they have all these different training applications to get me ready. And I'm out front, right? And I'm just like counter steering, like going 90, and they're all backing off the brakes because they know I'm gonna spin, and then I don't spin. And they come off the practice session and they're like, "How did you save that?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, drifters just know how to put our foot to the floor and steer in. You know what I mean? So like the car control that most drifting drivers would have into this series would be, we've done the hard part drifting already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we need to figure this out. I want to come rent one of those cars and drive with you. That'd be badass.
Yeah, it'd be super cool, man. Seriously.
I love that kind of racing. Like at times earlier in my drifting career, like a year and a half ago, I contemplated like if things didn't work out the way I wanted to in the next like 2 to 3 years, just trying something new. Yeah. Not because I'm like, oh, I can't make drifting work, but like because I'm just like, damn, I'm only going to be on this planet once. Like if I don't ever try something different, I'm literally never going to get to do it. The odds of my existence are so small that if I don't try everything, I'll never know what it felt like. I'll
Well,
never know what the experience was like. And I hate that feeling.
And this exact
It's almost like FOMO, but
dude, absolutely. And I mean, and I'm just now broadening my horizons on that thought, right? Like, I'm just like, damn, I'm a drifter, and that's cool. And that's all I'm gonna be. And then this opportunity pops up, and I'm like, whoa, I can go fast. And then you learn the consumables, like tossing a few numbers at you. It's like, this is a spec series. So you buy this vehicle, and pretty much you can mess with a little bit of alignment, and that's it. That's like all you can do to it.
I
It's
like
a
that.
spec series. $50,000, brand new, 0 miles out the box. That's how much this car cost. So in drift world, guys, it's like, that's big money, but also that's like half,
yeah.
if not less than half of a pro Formula Drift car right now.
Yeah.
So then you're like,
definitely less than half.
that's what I'm saying.
All these pro FD cars for Pro 1 are
200.
easily 200 grand now.
So there
Easily.
you go. So this is a quarter of
The
that.
drivetrain is 50 grand. In this series, you're getting a full race ready car,
0
spec
miles.
car for 50 grand.
These rev to almost 12. They go 11.8.
Damn.
11,800 RPM. It's on a numeric, like aired paddle shifter, so it feels like
It has
a
like a
Formula
sequential
1.
gearbox, right? No clutch or
It does have a clutch.
Okay,
You
pedal
just-
clutch. You have 3 pedals or
3 pedals. Yep, it's got a clutch. You come out of 1, so you come out of first gear, and then it's all paddle from there. And then you're just
Damn,
just turning in.
sick.
It's so sick, dude.
This might be a dangerous test day.
But all that to say was, like, in your testing day, for example, like Doug's got his hours down on his consumables, and it's like $200 an hour to run this car.
That's so cheap.
Yeah, and they're running like
It's $200 a lap for us to drive a
that's
pro
what
drift
I'm
car.
saying. And then you're like, whoa. So then you look at like a bill for a race, and you're like, oh, cool. Like, and you look at like tires and fuel, and you're like, how long do we use these tires? Oh, we can use these tires for like four sessions, or like, you know what I mean? Like a month. Like, yeah, you could. It's like,
That's crazy.
so it's to me anyways, like, just to wrap that up, guys, was just saying, like, it's cool to dive into a new form of motorsports, and it's cool that this form of motorsports could be an entry level into something that isn't like dramatically expensive.
Yeah, and it could be something different for you and what the future holds for you, because you're a very open-minded guy. So
Water in the palm.
yeah, this could be something
race at a time,
completely different for you. So that's
but
cool.
I was telling my lady, just to end this conversation, I was like, think about all the years I've been drifting, and I've been to Panama and Costa Rica thanks to Jonathan Castro. But other than those 2 phone calls in 15 years, no one's called me and said, hey, Nate, come drive this car. Like, we see some value in you. Come drive this car for us. And I'm sitting here in a month of training behind the scenes. Like, you guys are hearing this now, and all this news will be new. But like, I've been training for a month behind the scenes, and a manufacturer calls me to drive their car already.
It's nuts. It's crazy.
What?
It's sick. Well, I'm excited to watch that. I'm going to tune into that tomorrow. But dude, Nate, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're super, super busy today, and you came down here. We tried to shoot this during FD, but you were also busy. No issue there. I love that clip in your vlog, by the way. But dude, thank you for making the time to come out. I'm really glad we got to kind of double back on this, because I was on your podcast a few months ago, and now you're out here. So dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for having me, man. I hope I brought some value. Formula Drift, I love you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we love everybody.
Absolutely. But yeah, hope this brought you guys some value. Check out 144racing.com if you guys want to shop any merch. We're branching out into offering other stuff, right? We got Jared DeAnda, Chris Forsberg, Grant Anderson. Yeah, it's cool. So check out 144racing.com. Thanks for having me on. See y'all later.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Off Grid Podcast. This one with Nate Hamilton. We'll catch you guys next week.